Hi, so I'm Dominique Engle.
I'm Danielle Abdennour.
And I'm Karlea Brunelle-Joiner. We are all from St. Anselm College.
We're going to be talking about staying academically engaged during COVID-19 and transitioning to virtual Zoom events and finding new ways to keep students excited about learning amidst the pandemic.
So really quickly about St. Anselm, we're a very small liberal arts school in Manchester, New Hampshire. It's on the outskirts of Boston. Our enrollment is about 2,000 students. This semester, we have about 90% of our students are still living on campus, 9% are commuters, and 3% of our students are studying remotely. And what this means is that they have 4 classes that are completely remote. We have 90% of our students are engaged and involved, and 70% are engaged in service. So we have a very active student body. They're very busy.
All right, so we have a few poll questions for everyone. Our first one is, how many academic enrichment events does your committee have planned for this semester? And the second is, has your committee held an academic enrichment event during this semester yet? All right, so it looks like most people have planned between 1 and 4 enrichment activities so far this semester. Danielle and I have planned 2 so far. And as for committees holding an academic enrichment event this semester yet, most people haven't, which is fine. Danielle and I had just hosted our first one, so we're just getting started.
So now we wanted to talk a little bit about presentations prior to the pandemic. So for this first one that we held, about 15 to 20 students, as well as some professors, attended, and the entire classroom was filled. So overall, it was geared towards students, including those outside of ALD, and the attendees came from different majors and grade levels, and the audience was geared towards anyone on campus who had an interest in research or biology, or who just wanted to learn something new. And it's really important to engage students who are just not within the chapter, but also throughout your college chapter or throughout your college campus, because this increases awareness for your chapter on your college campus. So also some incentives for attendance have been like providing an introduction for getting involved with research on campus, and this can really attract a lot of students who are interested in research or science or anything like that. Also, extra credit was offered by some professors, as well as snacks. And overall, the outcome was very positive. A lot of good feedback came from students, and the professor received a lot of questions at the end. So then what we learned from this event. So we came across some improvements for the future. We found that getting professors to want to offer extra credit was a little bit difficult. Not all professors are willing to do that. So we looked at other incentives to raise the attendance, such as gift baskets or raffle tickets in the future. So we aim to make events more interactive, so it doesn't feel like you're just going to another class to listen to another long lecture. And we also thought about sending out surveys or polls at the end to gather more feedback or suggestions so we can make our events better for the future. Here are some photos from the lecture. This first one that we held was November 2019. And as you can see, the entire classroom was filled. So this was a full house.
And we just have some discussion questions for everyone. What was a successful event that your chapter held pre-COVID? And did you use any incentives for this event? And if so, what were they? So you can just put them in the chat or feel free to speak out.
So my chapter had a coffee and study night. So what we did was we had the food service, dining services cater with different kinds of snacks and coffee and hot tea and stuff. And we just actually had some tutors from our different departments come, and that way we were able to have like a nice study night with ALD members. We also opened it up to the rest of the college too. We're a pretty small chapter as well and a pretty small campus, so it worked out pretty nice. And the incentives we used where we were giving away free things, we had coffee, so that was food, and we also gave points too for those who came and participated.
Sounds like a great event. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the final review sessions that we've held on Zoom. As for attendees, we didn't receive any attendees to either one of our review sessions, but we think this could have been just because we just transitioned to Zoom in the spring semester, and probably not a lot of people really wanted to sign up and go online since it wasn't in person. But our incentives for attendance at this event was offering snacks to come to the sessions, and we think that we can improve on advertising more for this event outside of coordinating with our academic research center so that we can reach a broader variety of students and actually get some people to come and get tutored.
So engagement adjustments is the next topic. So with the transfer to Zoom, things have been a little bit difficult with communication and the types of events that we can hold. So essentially we had to cancel this specific event in the spring semester due to the pandemic. It was supposed to be held all the way back in March. So it proved difficult to perform this interactive demonstration through Zoom. So we decided to switch to a lecture-based event of the exact same theme with the same professor. It's just going to be a little bit different setup, and that's going to be occurring in October.
We're going to talk about some of the presentations we've held during the pandemic. So our first one we held this past week, September 28th, and we actually got a large amount of students. We got 10 from all different majors to come, which was absolutely great. And it was geared towards all students of the college, including those outside of ALD. So we wanted to get as many people as possible to come. Some of the incentives we use, we're offering a raffle drawing for a sports themed gift basket for all the attendees, and that seemed to go really well. And the outcome from our event was we got positive feedback from the students, and they found the topic that the professor spoke on to be really interesting and engaging. So what we learned from this event, communication is really key. The people we had in charge of publicity misunderstood the audience for the event, so the flyer was only sent out to people in ALD when we really wanted to include the whole school in it and allow them to have a chance to come to the event. So we're going to learn to plan ahead next time and advertise the event at least a week in advance instead of a few days before. That way we can get more people to come and, planned for our event. So that will definitely affect our attendance on future events in the future. And here's just some photos from the lecture. And it was a lecture format as well as interactive exercises that the professor held to coordinate more discussions between everyone at the event. And he also made some breakout rooms so that we could discuss among ourselves and really made it more interactive.
So future engagement plans, I touched on this a little bit before, but overall to hold a lecture instead of the interactive demonstration, and that will be on the 19th of October, so in just a couple of weeks. And so like I said before, this was originally meant for March 2020, but with Zoom, and this whole pandemic, we have to learn to adjust and, reschedule. Although now a lecture, the professor and theme of the presentation will still remain the same. And we will use this as an opportunity to build upon what we learned from our first lecture of the semester, which occurred on 9/28, so just last week. So we're thinking about using gift baskets as incentives again. We need to make sure we communicate well with other committees, such as publicity, and we also need to make sure we advertise for the event further in advance. So in conclusion, we've discussed events prior to the pandemic and what we can improve upon. We heard your thoughts and ideas on planning in your own ALD chapter. And we also talked about strategies for organizing presentations during the pandemic and what we have learned from using Zoom. I just wanted to throw this up really quick.
Yeah. This is just our contact information. If you have any further questions and would like to reach out to us, feel free.
One thing I noticed about that slide is that you have a position in your officer lineup called Academic Enrichment Chair. So that's great. I don't know that a lot of chapters have that. So there's one idea right there. If you have a lot of students interested in leadership positions, but not enough positions, maybe that's one you're not already using. So have an academic enrichment chair for your chapter. That's great.
So yeah, Dominique and Danielle's position is really geared towards continuing to engage students in academic endeavors. That's why their presentations are, and who they've recruited they're around scientific, how do you engage in research, and really getting out to students early on. I think the joys of research and celebrating kind of what our chapter members are doing in collaboration with faculty. So got a question here. Can you share more about how you set up the campus lecture?
Okay, so for our first one, we held that one, this was pre-COVID, we held that one in kind of just like a regular classroom, and everything was set up so that the teacher could lecture everyone in there. And then for our ones after pre-COVID, we held that on Zoom, so we could not set that up in a classroom like we had the first one, but it seemed to still go just as well.
Yeah, and then I just wanted to add also, like, the first thing that's really important to do is make sure you have like a topic in mind. So our first one was biology research themed. So the first thing I did is I made sure I emailed a professor that I thought might be interested in giving this lecture. And then I let them kind of build upon exactly what they wanted to present. And so Dominique and I afterwards, we coordinated like with the publicity and had them make flyers. We had the professor come up with the title for their own presentation. We hung up the flyers around campus and we sent them out mass email to everybody. And yeah, that's pretty much the basis for that.
I think you just addressed a question I was going to ask or follow up on, is how did you choose the professor for the lecture? So, because that title, I can't remember exactly what it was, but in your PowerPoint, it was an awesome title to his lecture. It was a pretty funny sounding, just intriguing and interesting. So was he known on campus as like is he a popular professor, like, and he gives interesting talks, or how do you pick who to invite?
Well, for me, they're usually professors that me or Dominique have had before.
Okay.
So usually ones that have like really resonate with us. And, this one professor that I asked, I think the one you're talking about, she was a really good professor. She had a lot of good, funny stories. She actually isn't even from Massachusetts. She's from a much warmer climate. So
Yeah.
she would always tell us like really funny stories about all that. So yeah, that's kind of how I came upon picking her.
Right. That's great. And
the second professor they selected, oddly enough, which I thought was fantastic, was he runs our first year experience program called Conversatio. So it was a great way. His name is definitely known with our first year students.
Yeah. And Trish just put a tip in the chat about how to find those professors. I mean, certainly your membership would know who's sort of an engaging professor and invite him or her, but there could be university news to see who's in the news. That's good. Okay. Anything else before we take our break? I think
the last tip I would add too is I think collaboration is key. Danielle and Dominique do a really good job at collaborating with our Academic Resource Center, and also really pushing to collaborate with our academic clubs and organizations on campus as well.
Thank you so much, Karlea and Danielle and Dominique. Again, always great to have students present. We have lots of students presenting tomorrow, so thank you for being here and for sharing your experience and expertise. Really appreciate it.